Courtrooms are supposed to be places of order and respect, but most days, they're just theaters, actors in suits, cheap drama, and a gallery full of people who laugh when they think they've already won. That morning, Jason Statham wasn't in the movies. He wasn't the star. He was the defendant. Blue work shirt, calloused hands, a man who looked like he belonged in a mechanic's garage, not in front of a judge. The lawyers smirked. The crowd chuckled. Even the clerk raised an eyebrow. To them, he was just another poor bastard who'd stumbled into the wrong fight. They didn't know who he was, not yet. Because when the judge finally flipped open the service record sitting quietly in front of him, the smirks vanished. The chuckles died. And in a courtroom where laughter had been cheap, silence suddenly became priceless. If you've got a few minutes, I'll tell you how Jason Statham went from being laughed out of court to making an entire room stand on its feet. The case had been plastered across local papers for weeks. Mechanic assaults businessman outside City Hall. Rogue worker thinks he's above the law. And the crowd ate it up. The man Jason was accused of assaulting wasn't just anybody. He was Richard Beaumont, a polished, smug real estate magnate who made a living bulldozing neighborhoods and calling it urban renewal. His money-greased palms from the mayor's office to the courtroom janitor. People didn't cross him. They didn't even look him in the eye. Jason had crossed him hard. According to witnesses, Beaumont had been in the middle of one of his press conferences, boasting about another tower that would push out another 100 working families, when Jason showed up. Words were exchanged. Voices rose. And in the end, Beaumont hit the pavement with a busted lip and a bruised ego. So now here they were, a courtroom full of Beaumont's friends, lawyers, and hangers-on, waiting to watch Jason Statham, the mechanic with grease under his nails, get torn apart. Jason sat quietly at the defendant's table. His lawyer, a nervous public defender, fumbled with papers, sweat beading on his forehead like he was the one on trial. Across the aisle, Beaumont reclined in his chair, designer suit catching the light, smile wide as if he were already rehearsing his victory speech. The room wasn't on Jason's side. Not a single face. People whispered, giggled, nudged each other like kids in the back of a classroom. Jason didn't flinch. He didn't raise his head. He just sat there, still as stone, as if the whole performance were beneath him. The prosecutor stood. Slick hair, shiny shoes, voice oozing with the confidence of a man who'd never been punched in his life. "Ladies and gentlemen of the court," he began, "this is a simple case. A case of a man who thinks that because he's strong, because he's willing to use his fists, he doesn't have to follow the rules the rest of us live by." He turned, pointing at Jason like a circus barker, calling out the main attraction. "This man, this mechanic, thinks he's above the law." Laughter rippled through the gallery. Even Beaumont chuckled, shaking his head as if to say, "What a joke." Jason sat still. His eyes didn't rise, his fists didn't clench. If you looked close enough, you might have thought he was bored. The prosecutor grinned. "And today, we're going to show him, and anyone else who thinks they can act like this, that no one is above the law." The words landed heavy. The gallery nodded, the laughter dying down, replaced with the smug satisfaction of people who thought they'd already won. Jason's lawyer stood next, thin, pale, the kind of man whose suit looked borrowed and whose voice cracked when he spoke. Your Honor, my client, It was painful to watch. The poor man stumbled through half a sentence before drowning in legal jargon that even he didn't seem to understand. Jason didn't look at him once. He didn't need to. The man wasn't there to save him. The judge, an older man with a face carved from stone, sighed heavily. He'd seen this play out 100 times, the rich against the poor, the powerful against the forgotten, and it always ended the same way. Or so he thought. Because when he glanced down at the folder on his desk, the one marked defendant's background, something caught his eye, a detail that made his brow furrow, his lips purse. He flipped the page, then another. The gallery was still smirking. The lawyers were still playing their parts, but the judge had gone very, very quiet. Meanwhile, Beaumont decided it was his turn to shine. "Your Honor," he said, voice dripping with arrogance, "I'd like to remind the court that men like this," he waved a manicured hand toward Jason, "are a threat to civilized society. They don't build, they don't invest, they don't contribute, they just take and smash and destroy." The gallery clapped. The judge's gavel came down once, silencing them, but Beaumont's smile never faltered. He leaned back, smug as ever. Men like him, he sneered, belong in prison, or better yet in the trash heap where they came from. The gallery laughed again, full-throated, ugly laughter that filled the room. Jason finally lifted his eyes, slowly, calmly. He looked at Beaumont not with anger, not with hate, but with something far worse, pity. The laughter faltered, just a little. The judge cleared his throat. His voice, when it came, was steady but different. "Mr. Statham," he said, looking down at the file, "would you please stand?" Jason rose. The gallery leaned forward, eager to watch the show. The judge adjusted his glasses. "It says here, you served in the Royal Navy." The laughter stopped. The prosecutor blinked. Beaumont frowned. Jason said nothing. The judge continued. "Not only served, decorated, commended for valor on multiple occasions, multiple tour, classified operations." The courtroom had gone silent now. You could hear the paper shuffle in the clerk's trembling hands. And the judge said, eyes narrowing at the file, "You left the service with the rank of Chief Petty Officer. Is that correct?" Jason gave a single nod. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge closed the file with a snap. Then he looked at Beaumont, and the look wasn't friendly. For the first time all morning, Beaumont shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His smirk faltered. The gallery, once so loud, sat frozen in their chairs, eyes darting between the judge, the defendant, and the man who had just been so sure of his own power. Jason stood tall. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The weight of his silence was louder than any defense his lawyer could have given. The judge leaned forward, his voice cutting through the stillness. "I've seen many men stand before this court," he said, "but not many who have done what you've done for their country." He paused, letting the words hang heavy. "And not many who deserve the mockery they've been subjected to today." Jason's eyes flickered just for a second with something sharp, not pride, not relief, but something colder. Because he knew this wasn't over, not yet. The silence in that courtroom felt like it lasted forever, but Jason knew silence. He'd lived in it on submarines deep under black water, in barracks half a world away, in the breathless pause before a firefight. Silence wasn't scary. It was familiar. The people laughing at him, they were the ones who didn't understand silence. They didn't know how heavy it could get, how it pressed down until someone cracked. And right now, the one cracking was Richard Beaumont. Jason watched the man squirm in his seat. The polished real estate king with his perfect suit and his perfect hair looked suddenly smaller, like a rat that had just realized the cat wasn't chained after all. The judge lifted his gavel, but instead of banging it, he tapped it lightly on the desk. The sound wasn't loud, but it echoed. "Mr. Beaumont," the judge said, his voice cold, "you stand in this courtroom accusing another man of being a threat to society. And yet the record before me shows a decorated veteran, commendations for bravery, service under fire, missions classified to this day." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Tell me, what service do you have to show this court?" The question hit like a slap. The gallery, which had been so eager to laugh before, shifted in their seats. Some of them looked down at their laps. Nobody laughed now. Beaumont sputtered, "Your Honor, with all due respect, this man attacked me in broad daylight." Jason finally spoke. His voice was quiet, steady, and low, but it carried. "I didn't attack you." Every head turned. Even the judge leaned forward. Jason's eyes locked on Beaumont's. "I stopped you from striking her." The gallery stirred, whispers darting across the room. "For who was her?" Jason went on, still calm. "You raised your hand to a woman outside City Hall, thought no one would stop you, thought your money bought you that right." Beaumont's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The gallery gasped, a wave of sound that rolled through the benches. Jason kept going. "I don't care who you are or how much you own. You lay hands on someone who can't fight back." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "And you answer to me." The prosecutor leapt up, desperate to salvage the case. "Objection unsubstantiated." The judge's gavel cracked down, bang. "Overruled." The prosecutor froze. The judge wasn't looking at him. The judge's eyes stayed on Beaumont, sharp as knives. "Mr. Beaumont," the judge said, "is this true?" Beaumont tried to laugh it off, his voice trembling. "Your Honor, this is nonsense," he's twisting. But the judge cut him off. "You will answer the question." The silence returned, the kind of silence that burned holes in a man's pride. Beaumont swallowed hard. His eyes darted to the gallery, to the press in the back row, to the people he needed to impress. Jason just stared at him, not blinking, not moving. Finally, Beaumont muttered, "She was interfering." The gallery erupted. Gasps, murmurs, outrage. The judge slammed his gavel again, calling for order, but the damage was done. Everyone had heard it. Jason didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply sat back down, his point made. The judge leaned back in his chair. "I've heard enough." The prosecutor started to protest, but the judge's hand snapped up, silencing him. The courtroom fell still once more. The judge's voice dropped low, heavy with finality. "Mr. Statham, this court owes you more than respect. It owes you an apology. You are dismissed of all charges." The gavel came down with a thunderous crack. The gallery stood, not all at once, not perfectly, but enough. Veterans in the back row rose to their feet first, their hands pressed firm in salute. Civilians followed, awkward but sincere, standing out of instinct, out of something older than law. Even the journalists put their pens down. For once, no one dared laugh. Beaumont stayed frozen in his chair. His face was a mask of rage, disbelief, and humiliation. He had walked into the courtroom expecting to bury a mechanic. Instead, he had been exposed, stripped bare in front of everyone. Jason didn't look at him, didn't say a word. He just walked out, calm, silent, like a storm that had already passed but left the wreckage behind. But here's the thing about storms: they don't just disappear. The story didn't end in that courtroom. By the evening, headlines told a different tale. Veteran cleared of charges, businessman exposed. Jason Statham, mechanic, sailor, hero. Clips from the trial spread like wildfire. Jason's words, "You lay hands on someone who can't fight back, you answer to me," were replayed on news channels, shared across phones, scribbled onto signs. Beaumont's empire, built on intimidation, suddenly looked like glass. And Jason became something Beaumont had never expected him to be: untouchable. Jason didn't celebrate, he didn't drink, he didn't smile at the headlines. He just went home, a small flat, a quiet night. He wasn't in it for fame, he wasn't in it for recognition. He did what he always did, what was right. But sometimes, doing what's right doesn't just change the moment, it changes everything around it. Because when Jason walked into that courtroom, he was just a mechanic accused of assault. And when he walked out, he was the man who silenced a city's laughter. That's the thing about Jason Statham. He doesn't need applause. He doesn't need the spotlight. All he needs is one moment, one chance. And when it comes, the world remembers.